There's nothing worse than dropping full price on a new game only to realise after a few hours that something is clearly wrong and you've essentially been duped. In this industry, pricing a game continues to be a fascinating thing. Anything released for the full 50/60 notes will no doubt be discounted a few weeks later depending on sales. Wait a year and you'll get it for free as part of a monthly service, or there's just the reality of paying for what a game might eventually become once a publisher has their week one money and the developers are allowed to patch it. Of all the entertainment mediums, gaming is the one where you cough up the most money per unit and then just hope for the best. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com and these are 9 video games that weren't worth full price. Number 9, Star Wars Battlefront 2, launch version. Look up dropping the ball in the dictionary and you should see a picture of an EA logo practically throwing the Battlefront IP into the dirt. Such was the treatment of Battlefront 2 in 2017 that it almost went on to undo the idea of microtransactions once and for all. I say this because the game had to mess up on a global scale for legal action to be taken, and EA to be raked over the coals for exploiting a fanbase quite so much. Even if you could accept the lack of fan-favourite modes like Galactic Conquest, the big controversy was over putting characters and upgrades behind a terribly balanced loot box system. The only way to enjoy some Star Wars with any degree of satisfaction gameplay-wise was to cough up the cash. The backlash to EA defending this ended up being the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. Thankfully, DICE turned Battlefront 2 into easily one of the best Star Wars games of all time, but its launch state and existence across 2017, that was utterly unacceptable. Number 8, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Fans had been demanding a new Animal Crossing for the Wii U for a long time, having had their fun with New Leaf and ready for a new experience on a new console. While they're more than happy now with New Horizons, arguably the best Animal Crossing to date, first they had to put up with Amiibo Festival. Whoever's idea it was to release a new game in the series but make it a Mario Party ripoff with a reliance on Amiibo figures and cards should probably be kept away from the IP forever. Like Happy Home Designer, this just was not Animal Crossing. Instead, putting you through a totally generic board game structure, with the only appeal being your existing love of the franchise. Worse still, this being Nintendo, Amiibo Festival cost an insulting $60 in a bundle on release, with further costs factoring in for additional Amiibos. Seriously, while we're on, side note, what the living F is up with Nintendo's online price points? Number 7, The Order 1886. The Order 1886 looked to be another fantastic PS4 exclusive with a focused narrative just like Uncharted or The Last of Us. A game where you played as a knight who had to take on the likes of vampires and werewolves in a steampunk London. This was a cool setting with an interesting story, but sadly Ready at Dawn got too carried away with style over substance. The Order 1886 was just too short. You could finish it in just over 5 hours, and there wasn't much reason to replay as one trip through and you'd seen everything. The campaign itself was made up of repetitive shooter segments and boss fights that reused the same template multiple times, with the rest of your time spent in cutscenes. Honestly, one chapter begins and ends as a cutscene. You don't even get to control anything. The game might have looked brilliant from a graphical standpoint, and there was a solid enough Gears-aping shooter here, but in no universe was this worth full price. Number 6, SimCity 2013. After 6 years without a SimCity, fans were desperate to get their hands on 2013's return installment. In a move that apparently came from Maxis trialing some next-level version of SimCity interaction across thousands of player cities at once, this single-player game required a constant connection to EA's servers. Of course, this didn't pan out, and as a hugely hungry fanbase descended on launch, players were forced to watch an on-screen timer counting down to when they could access the thing they just bought. How long to play, you ask? Between 30 and 45 minutes. The problems didn't stop here, as due to those poor servers, even when you got into a game you ran the risk of losing your save data and progression altogether. The area provided for players to build in was also much smaller to accommodate for data load and creation sharing, but obviously none of this was functional. EA would later say the situation was quote-unquote dumb and would hand out free games to players as a peace offering. The damage to the SimCity brand though was 1,000,000% done. Number 5, Saints Row 4. With Saints 3 being the best of the bunch, many fans were naturally pretty excited when Saints 4 was announced not long after that game. Originally planned as an expansion, it was cancelled and repackaged into a standalone title. However, anyone who played Saints Row 4 can tell you the game just doesn't feel like a true sequel. Essentially, it paved the way for another DLC game, Gat Out of Hell, to come out as well. While it is a new story for the characters with gameplay additions like superpowers, the core of the title is exactly the same. The city you play in is a copy of the previous map with some minor additions, there are barely any new vehicles, and minigames were more of the same old activities, plus some pretty naff new ones. The main selling point was the aforementioned superpowers. Super strength, super speed, laser blasts, it was all fun enough for the first few moments, i.e. what would have been a DLC, but these powers ruined the core of playing the game. Why use vehicles or even weapons when you can leap entire districts or conjure fireballs? The story went into alien invasion territory for a few good laughs, but across the board this proved that Volition had reached breaking point on Saints Row's wacky agenda. Number 4. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. I've said this many times before, usually in reference to how Metal Gear Solid 2 was marketed and sold, but we love Hideo Kojima and his games so much, we'll let him get away with pretty much anything. Case in point, Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. Released as ostensibly a full-price demo for the Phantom Pain, the hook was that you were getting an enemy base to infiltrate that wouldn't be in the full version of MGS5. While gameplay was tight and this prologue served its narrative purpose, Ground Zeroes sold for £30 on release. This is a ridiculous amount of money to spend on one area of a game that you can complete in under an hour. Many convinced themselves that if you tried different weapon combos or infiltration methods, you could push this up to 4 hours. Honestly though, looking back, we'd clearly all been had, and these were the words of those in denial. Number 3. Fallout 76. One of the most controversial video game launches in recent memory, Fallout 76 was the last straw for many gamers, as Bethesda delivered an overpriced, barren Fallout experience that sought to gouge fans' eyes out at every turn. Day one and several bugs were being shared online, ranging from glitched models to those that broke mission progression altogether. Feeling like every bit the game engine tech demo it was later revealed to be, 76 has yet to turn its reputation around. It represents a Bethesda that's lost sight of their original goals or the reason why they matter in the industry. On top all of that, even if you weren't keeping up with the controversy, Bethesda lowered the price of Fallout 76 just a week after release, trying to use Black Friday to shift copies, then they lowered it again the following week. Even they knew that you shouldn't be paying full price for this, and that is unbelievably telling. Number 2. DayZ. Whenever anybody critiques Steam Early Access, they'll be quick to cite DayZ as one of the worst offenders for releasing in an unplayable state, but still charging money for it. DayZ released on Steam in 2013 for £20, but the game featured less gameplay mechanics than the already free Arma 2 DayZ mod. It would continue in beta for 5 years until an eventual release in 2018. While you can defend DayZ as clearly advertised early access, it comes to something when 5 years pass, a fan base are pointing out many issues, but their money or time invested doesn't seem to be having any effect. Those still playing rely on modders to add content or fix bugs, providing stern warnings to anyone looking to opt in today. And number 1, Anthem. After over a year of nothing but disappointment and threadbare content updates, EA have greenlit a complete overhaul of Anthem going forward, all but admitting that none of us should have bothered back in February 2019. Reviews were mixed to negative in the first place, and try as they might, none of the BioWare magic came through whatsoever. Anthem just isn't the type of game that BioWare fans want, and with scores of team members leaving, the game's project leads changing multiple times within the last year, it seems even those left behind don't want to work on it either. At this stage, to me, they would just be better quietly announcing that work will no longer be continuing as the project is mired in negativity. Games like Anthem live and die on dedicated fanbases, unique worlds or reasons to revisit and log in day after day. Kotaku's very revealing expose highlighted just how much BioWare's top talent didn't want to work on something that's so far out their wheelhouse, and the final product is every bit as box-ticky as you'd imagine. Maybe there's a way to save Anthem and make its notion of an ever-changing environment engaging, but one thing has to be nailed down. Nobody is paying full price for Anthem-based content ever again. And those are my picks for video games that just were not worth full price. Let me know your own choices down in the comments below, and please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast we upload on Tuesdays and Fridays. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.